Hello there, and welcome to Andre's Artist Profiles. Today, I'm going to be profiling Monica, who is celebrating her 33rd birthday today. Now, the genre of music to which Monica is part of or belongs to was not my favorite. Personally, I felt it was a bit cliche. I mean, at the time, a lot of artists like Monica were kind of a dime a dozen, based generally in the hip-hop soul sound coined by Mary J. Blige. But there were two young teenage artists that I knew about at that time. I didn't know about Alea back then, but there was Brandy and there was Monica, and they have a history together, which I'll go into a little bit later. But this album that you see right here, Monica was only about 13 when she recorded this. You can see on the cover how young she is. This album was called Miss Fang, and it came out in 1995. Actually, she would have been about 14, 15 years old. She was, I believe the word at the time for them was New Jill, rather than New Jack Swing, and whatever. This album, and this is something that goes for all of her records as well, the reason I like it so much is because she leans more toward the soul funk side of hip-hop soul funk. On this album there isn't as much orientation toward guest rappers. There's at least a live sound to the production, and her vocals are really beautiful, strong, and soulful, and she never oversouls, meaning, as the coined Jerry Wexler terms, she doesn't go around, warbling on one chord. She sings straight, she sings good, and she's expressive. And I really love this album. I think it may be my favorite Monica release so far because of its level of consistency. You can see how young she is. The next album, now at this point, I was getting really heavy into Brandy, and this album is called The Boy Is Mine. This album came out in 1998, and it was complimentary to an album released by Brandy a year or so before, where she duetted with Monica. And Brandy had a smokier vocal inflection, where Monica had a tougher sound. And this album is a little more contemporary, as it were, a little bit more hip-hop production. But there's a song on here called Gonna Be Fine with Outkast. And still that sense of being closer to soul and funk in that hip-hop soul world is still present there, although it's a little more commercially oriented than her first. Okay, there's a little bit of history about this album. In 2000, I believe, Monica recorded a record called All Eyes on Me, which I believe only got released in Europe. But there was some complications during the production, and she got another producer and reshuffled some of the songs, and ended up releasing the album redone under the name After the Storm, which is the only one readily available. This is from 2003. Another good, solid Monica album. Her team with Clive David. Missy Elliott helps out on production. DMX being on here, it starts with that whole let's feature a bunch of guest rappers kind of attitude. I wasn't really into that, still not. But it was that time, post 9/11, where, an R&B artist like Monica, or soul artist or whatever, she's not really R&B. I want to make that distinction. She's not, Ray Charles or Robert Cray or anything. People use R&B a little too much as a term. She's a soul funk artist, basically. But I digress. This album, it's pretty good, a little closer to the first one, but, and really good quality material. One thing I like about Monica is that her songwriting and instrumentation are all very strong, well played, well written, to her vocals. The next album arrived in 2005, I believe. And there's the back of it. Actually, 2006. And it was called The Makings of Me. It's not too different from the After the Storm / All Eyes on Me. The big difference is that there's more of a guest orientation here. Now, it was the times. 2005 and 6, it was prerequisite. But anyway, not a bad album. Her next one came out in 2010. And I had to do a little soul searching about this because I listened to it, and at the time I was thinking, oh, the same old thing. But I like Monica. I always like her stuff for some reason. And it's pretty good once you get into it. You know, sound samples from Amazon don't always steer you right. And I had to learn that with this album. And there's a song on it called If You Were My Man, which samples Evelyn Champagne King. And it's a great boogie funk number in that the sample doesn't seem too broken up. It seems like they're genuinely playing the song, and that's the best way of doing a sample. And otherwise, it's not a bad album either. Her last album was New Life. I should note that, you know, between After the Storm and The Makings of Me, her boyfriend committed suicide, and she got married and had a child. And this album, of course, deals with maturity. You know, a lot. That's another cliche. Let's deal with sexuality and maturity or whatever. But Monica does it right here. It's an actual album. It's constructed like a classic soul concept album. You know, her vocals are at her top peak, and the music is really excellent. And she brings Brandy back for It All Belongs to Me. And she kind of knocks off the guest thing, you know, to a certain degree. But, you know, the guest thing is sort of disappearing in the last 4 or 5 years anyway. 2009, 2010, music started to come out of its cliches, and hip-hop soul is starting to transgress into something else, and I don't know what it's turning into. But anyway, Monica is somebody who might be on the forefront of that. She's still young, my age, you know, and she still has a lot of potential, but she's recorded some pretty good albums, and that's all she's actually made. I have all her stuff. So far, I'm a Monica completist, actually. So, you know, happy birthday to Monica, and keep the good music coming. See you next time.